Call me a race traitor and a PM on Reddit? Let's destroy your life. A few years ago, on a different Reddit account, I mentioned that I was in an interracial relationship. A Redditor reached out to me and told me I was a race traitor and unfaithful to my race. I was like, WTF, bro. I looked at his account, it was 6 years old, which told me his username was likely something he used a lot. So I started Googling his username at Gmail, username at Yahoo, etc., etc., and I found a match with Hotmail. A guy by the name of, let's say, Jeff was selling some NFL game tickets and had posted his email. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's the same person. However, in the post, he mentioned a city in America and that he was a fan of a particular football team. I went through the Reddit user post history. He posted quite a bit in the respective city subreddit. He mentioned going to NFL games, and in another post, he also said he was born in Canada. So through the ad for the NFL ticket, I figured out his real name. I found his biography on his employer's website. He was a senior level manager, so they had a bio for him. In that bio, they mentioned he was born in Canada, was a fan of said NFL team, and loved living in the city. I also found his LinkedIn page during this time. So I sent him a connect request on LinkedIn, which he accepted. I figured he would because he had 500 plus connections. So here's what we know. His username matches his email handle. He likes the NFL team. He lives in a said city that he posts in said city's subreddit. He was born in Canada. I then found his Facebook page. His Facebook page was public, and he posted what I would describe as semi-racist material. Also, his Reddit page was significantly more racist. Based on the numerous connecting factors, I determined, so I create a report. I included screenshots and links and summarized my findings in that report. Now, based on this person's position in his company, he likely had a significant role in deciding who this company employs. Also, his company clearly stated they were an equal opportunity employer. So I called their HR department, I found the number, and I called them, and I asked them, would you be concerned if a senior level manager in your organization was a proud racist and degraded your equal opportunity employment policies? They were concerned. So I told them I had done an investigation into one of their senior level managers and described he was racist, and I had put together all my evidence and findings in a report and could email it over to them. I emailed them the report. A few weeks later I called to get an update and I was told they appreciated my report, however they would have to comment on the status of their decision and make public statements in regard. Basically, thanks for letting us know, but we aren't going to tell you poop. That's fine. So I waited another month, and I kept checking his LinkedIn page. Then one day, I saw a LinkedIn post from him in which he said he is looking for a new opportunity and if anyone had any positions open. So I messaged him on Reddit and I told him, hey bro, heard you got fired. Just want you to know I'm the reason why. He threatened to find out who I was, hunt me down or pee my spouse and strangle me to death. So I reported him to Reddit admins who promptly perma-banned him. Now, he really should have learned his lesson, because guess what? He didn't connect the dots. He didn't know I could see all his LinkedIn activity. He didn't know who I was, he simply acted in rage. So I put his newest message in his folder and added it the report, because you see I can be an incredibly vindictive motherfucker. I checked his LinkedIn, once a week. Good news, he got another job. Bad news, their HR department was also quite easy to get a hold of and discuss their new hires' online racist, threatening behavior. However, let's just say I had a lovely conversation with this HR representative. She was a woman, and based on how she sounded and her name I suspect she was a woman of color. So yay. I'm not sure what happened after this, because a few weeks later his internet history was cleaned up, and his LinkedIn page was deleted. However, this company listed their senior management, which was what his position was. I never saw his name listed. What I suspect happened is after his HR reviewed my evidence they terminated his employment with them. I would have totally gone after him a third time, but he got smart the second time around. Hey BTW Jeff, if you see this post I'd love for you to send me a new message. I really enjoyed the little game I played with you. I also question, how did you handle getting fired from 2 jobs back to back on your resume and in future job interviews? Story 2. My 29F boyfriend 32 meters went to a strip club on a guy's trip and bought a lap dance. Hello everyone. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 years. He acknowledged to me today that, a year into our relationship, he and 2 other friends visited a strip club. Both he and one of his friends paid for a stripper to dance on their laps. Each of them is committed to their partner. Right now, I feel so disgusted and betrayed. He has happily lied to me in front of others in the past few years, as well. It's funny because he didn't say anything when I told him a few months ago that going to a strip club would be a deal breaker for me and that I would consider this cheating. I was shocked when he revealed it to me today. When I asked him if he had ever slept or spoken to anyone else while we were dating, he flatly denied it. I find it difficult to believe him. And since her boyfriend was the one who was with him, I am unable to discuss it with my best friend. I want to tell her so badly, but I don't even know if she knows. Sincerely, I'm devastated and brokenhearted. We fought all day long and had a major fight. He took it mostly with just me screaming and crying. He's snoozing on the couch right now. What to do is beyond me. We split the bills and the cost of living. I even broke my own rules by allowing him to stay here. I might be posting in the wrong section, but I feel like I've crossed a line and needed to ask your thoughts and learn from your experiences. Is this the beginning of him slowly telling the truth? Should I let this go? Am I reacting too strongly? Redditor's reactions next story after. Redditor 1, I disagree with a lot of comments here. You're allowed to have this as a boundary. It's a pretty common boundary such that it's reasonable to assume your partner is not getting lap dances unless you guys talk about it beforehand and deem it okay. Why the F in our society do we deem it okay to get lap dances? He didn't know your boundary, but he should have discussed it with you before doing it. I would be very upset too. All of that said, he told you the truth, which is good. I don't think this relationship is ruined, but you have a right to be upset. It sounds like he understands, which is good. He is listening to what you are saying and not being defensive from the sound of it. To me it sounds like you have a good guy who did something stupid and is willing to learn from his mistakes and be honest about them. Redditor follow up, he did know the specific boundary for years and chose to hide it from her. Getting secret lap dances in a relationship is cheating. She should tell the other girlfriends' wives for a start. Assuming none of them know, it would have to be because the men discussed it and agreed to hide it from their partners. Redditor 2, if it was my best friend, I'd be telling her. Redditor 3, it should be an obvious boundary. Doing something s-time with a person other than your so is not cool. You are not overreacting. If he needed this to be said out loud, then he is the one that is confused about the meaning of monogamy. Story 3, pro-divorce. Even in pro-revenge, this might not win me many friends, so I made a throwaway. I experienced all of this a few years ago. After sharing my divorce story with a friend, I received advice to do so more widely. Began a few years ago. I assumed that we were content. We were your typical professional suburban couple. Financial stability, good health, a fulfilling social life, and 2 children ages 14 and 9 at the time. I considered our social life to be healthy. We were going through one of the difficult times that every married couple experiences. We were both working long hours, not spending enough time with each other, dealing with some developmental issues with my son, and the tension in the home was a little high. She was spending a lot more time texting her girlfriends on her phone, I noticed. I wasn't too concerned about it. I began making much more of a conscious effort to leave work early when I could, help around the house, and be more emotionally available, but over the course of a few weeks the gap only grew wider. When I charged an old iPad for my son to use, I unintentionally discovered some messages. Her Facebook Messenger account was still active, and there were numerous dubious messages with a man from her hometown who I'll refer to as Jim Bob Cooter or JBC for short. The messages weren't entirely inappropriate, but based on the timing and context, I could tell there were quite a few missing. I decided to keep an eye on this and set out to make things right. The following day, she was back in the living room corner texting her girlfriends after I had taken the day off to finish some projects I thought would make her happy. I had also left her some sweet notes to let her know how much I appreciated her. I brought the iPads for the boys to work, opened FB Messenger, and watched in real time as my wife beat me. She and JBC were making fun of me. She and JBC now had access to all of my flaws, insecurities, and secrets that I had shared with my partner. Additionally, even though there wasn't overt sexiness, the entire conversation had a sexual undertone, particularly when she was criticizing my performance in the sack. I was able to capture a few screenshots, but I was unable to capture the majority of the conversation because she was deleting messages as it happened. I couldn't face her because I wasn't emotionally prepared. I lingered in the office and drank a few drinks until she fell asleep. The following day, I left and took some time to reflect, drink, and consider my options. When the wife returned home and inquired as to what was wrong, I simply acted out and informed her that I had a bad day. A few minutes later, I was watching the train wreck on my iPad, so I started taking screenshots, drinking, and removing myself from the relationship for a few solid weeks. I understood that this was a done deal. My wife was fully engaged in the messages, which were now overtly timed, and JBC was sprinkling "I love US." After speaking with a lawyer and learning my options, I took action. Everything became utterly surreal at this point. JBC was visiting the area to spend a romantic weekend with my wife in a posh hotel. I learned from the messages he left for me. I was able to infer enough to understand the when and where, even though I was missing a lot of the details. They must have discussed it on the phone at some point. The next day, sure as hell, my wife is trying to win me over and wants to go on a spa getaway with the girls to unwind so that when she gets back, we can really concentrate on our marriage. I fully embrace it. She came up with the best idea ever, and I'll stop at nothing to get us moving again. I meet with the attorney and ask him to draft a strong separation agreement outlining her move-out date, weekend visitation rights, and the lack of child support during the interim period leading up to the divorce's conclusion. The next 2 weeks are the most agonizing of my life. After all of this, I no longer have the majority of my feelings for her and am instead filled with a level of rage I've never experienced. The day of D-Day arrives. I skip work that day. I take my share of any funds in our joint accounts while leaving hers untouched. My paycheck was already being forwarded to a different bank. I close our money market account, get a cashier's check for her portion, and deposit my portion in my new account. I go to Office Max, print out about 75 pages of screenshots from Facebook Messenger, and then I kill time because I don't want to be at home. She sends me a text saying she's leaving and that she loves me. I advise her to enjoy herself. At around 8:30, I arrive at the hotel and dial the wife's number from the lobby. It goes directly to VM. Most likely, they are already engaged in it. I approach the front desk and inquire about using the phone to reach JBC's room. He answers the call after 3 rings. JBC, hello, me, JBC, can you send my wife down to the lobby please? JBC, I don't know what you're talking about bro. Me, okay then. I guess I'll have to call Mrs. JBC and get her down here. Totally a bluff. I knew he was married, and I knew her first name but that was it. JBC, inaudible, shuffling, panic. Me, you got 5 minutes. Click. Not even 2 minutes later my wife comes walking out of the elevator looking a little flustered. I sit her down in the corner of the lobby. Her, starts spewing veal poop saying it's not what it seems etc etc. Me, I'm not here to argue. The things that are said in this pile of papers are what's going on. The only way I'm not giving a copy of this to daughter, your parents and emailing it to everyone we know is if you move out immediately. Wife was very prideful. Daughter was going through a rebellious teen phase and her knowing probably would have forever killed their relationship. Wife was also her parents' golden child and she always worried about what they thought of her. I didn't have much leverage and shame was my only card to play. Also her professional life is built up around her image, so I knew she would protect that at all costs. Her, sniffle, mumble, inaudible. Me, this is a check for half of the money market account. I've withdrawn my half of the money from all the other joint accounts. You should have more than enough to get a place. She starts to cry a little. I could almost see the different thoughts and waves of emotions going through her, but now was the time to keep pressing. Me, here is a separation agreement that I think is more than fair considering what's going on. I'm going to need you to look this over, sign it, and leave it at the house when you get your stuff. Do you want to look through these screenshots? Her, no. Me, okay. Go have fun with JBC. Do not come back to the house or I'm going to send this holds up ream of screenshots to everyone. She begins to have a breakdown as I bounce out of the lobby. I enter the vehicle, drive to a parking lot, and then have my own crying fit of rage. In the past, I would have screamed, cried, and otherwise behaved badly in front of her, but I was able to maintain control. What she did that evening or over the weekend is unknown to me. She repeatedly called and texted to ask to speak. By the time Monday afternoon rolled around, movers were getting her belongings, and she had delivered the agreement. I had simply put the phone to sleep. I gave her permission to speak to the children and basically told them that mommy and daddy needed some time apart but that they were still loved. Divorce lingo that is common. She wants to first have a real talk after a week. I comply with her because I already have my poop in order and know what I want, but I should also give her some space. She is truly sorry. She seeks another opportunity. She desires to reunite with her family. She'll take on any task. She is crying into my lap while on her knees. I don't intend to ever take her back. I advise her to schedule a time for marriage counseling that works for me on her own. I explain to her that although I can't live with her, she should still be around the kids in an effort to keep a connection with them. So begins our new routine of her visiting, cooking, and having dinner with the children 3 nights a week. She always saved me a plate, so I made myself scarce, then cleaning the home and doing the kids' laundry before leaving to go to her place. We visited a counselor. She begged for forgiveness. The therapist helped her work through her problems, and I acted stoically as the victim while she worked through her issues. She was never going to get another chance from me. All I wanted to do was have a good time, establish myself as the children's primary caregiver, and prove that she didn't live with us. I visit my own therapist a few months later and am given a depression and PTSD diagnosis. I inquire at work about the possibility of working part-time for the foreseeable future in order to address personal issues, and it's no big deal. She is still the love of my life, so maybe someday we can try again. After 6 months of therapy, I told her that I couldn't forgive her right now and that I wanted a divorce that was amicable. She was heartbroken but consented to the divorce provided that I made a future attempt. I needed the children to want to stay with me once the divorce papers were filed. On the home's shared computer, I left a Google search for how to survive your wife's infidelity, and I left some printed out infidelity articles in the kitchen that weren't exactly hidden. When my daughter discovered them, she ran to me in tears. She wasn't supposed to find those, her mother had made a mistake, but she still loved her, and I assured her that I would always be there for her. It devastated her that my daughter, who once held my wife in such high regard, would no longer engage in conversation with her without screaming. Unsurprisingly, when the court requested the children's statements a few months later, the younger sibling followed the older sibling and expressed a desire to remain with their father in the home where they had grown up. As soon as the divorce was finalized, I received the house. I had to buy out some of her equity, but that's okay. The children now live primarily with me. Due to the difference in our incomes brought on by my part-time employment, I was granted generous child support. For the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to live at home with my children, work part-time, and get the now ex to pay for it. On the weekends, when she looks after the children, I get to enjoy myself with some FWBs I've developed and Tinderellas. Because I always take the high road and am there for my children, I am revered as the fatherhood patron saint by my children. In the eyes of my ex, I'm the one that got away that she will always pine for, and I get the bonus of having her come over for S-time whenever I want it by dangling that carrot of maybe getting back together. But that is never going to happen. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, this is brutal, efficient, cold, calculating and downright impressive. If this doesn't belong in pro-revenge, nothing does. Redditor 2, very calculated. I think the level of manipulation will ruffle more than a few people's feathers, but realistically this is probably the best outcome. Your ex cheated, the relationship with your daughter was already ducked at that point. Had you confronted her, you'd still be getting divorced, because there's no way you could trust her again after the lies. The only person who suffers here is your wife. I think you made the smart decision by maximizing your own happiness. The kids would have suffered way more with 2 unhappy parents than they would with the current setup. Pro-revenge indeed. Redditor 3, damn. While I can't agree with a few of the stuff, this was a pro-revenge nevertheless. I guess, in the end, I hope your children will be the happiest kids ever, and that's what counts. Redditor follow-up, I understand a lot of this post, but I can't agree with bringing kids into it, at any age for any reason. This will hurt his daughter, if not now, then in the future no doubt. Some might say that ignorance wouldn't be better, but when it comes to one's relationship with their parents, I would disagree. But, when people are hurt that badly, I understand. It's just a sad story all the way around. Redditor 4, you are all forgetting the real victims, the poor hotel staff who had to smile, be professional and offer comfort and support for a cheating spouse. Again, just another shift. Just another anecdote for the new hires. Redditor follow up, this is 5 years late, but now I want the matching Our Tales from Front Desk post.